So, Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome. Great to be able to speak to you and get into the nitty gritty about Google Ads. But first, I'd love to know a bit more about your background. So, you have this unique crossover of being an ex-owner of a landscaping company and now a Google Ads expert. Can you explain this to us?
Yeah, no worries, no problem. My stepfather growing up had a lawn care company, had a lawn care business, and so it was a very seasonal thing. So, I think you put that in the thing, right? My joke is like, while the kids were looking forward to vacations and going somewhere, I was mowing lawns and digging holes and raking clippings and stuff like that. So I kind of grew up a little bit in the business, and then after I came to Panama, I was actually, I don't think you know this, but I was hired as the CEO of a landscaping company here, a rather big one that had been around since the 70s. And the owner was, he was in his 60s, late 60s, was looking to try to retire, wanted to kind of get the company running itself, things like that. And a lot of landscapers know, and myself included, is like most of these companies, the owners, he's been there since, the first day. He was the guy, he was the accountant, he was the secretary, he was the designer, he was the project manager, he's out there doing sales, and he was the same way. So when I came on there, the first thing I wanted to do was to get them more modern, right? And so I brought up things like, we got to get your social media up. We got to, he was using the same logo since the 70s, right? And the name of the company was Techno Hardin, which means like a technical garden, if you translate it directly. But his logo wasn't like that. It was like old school logo. They had old t-shirts, things like that. And so I wanted to do social media. I wanted to do Google Ads. I wanted to do all this stuff. And he was like, no, he's like, we don't need that. It's like, people see we do a good job. They read the name of the guy on the back of the shirt. That's all we need, like that's how we've been doing it for 30 years. That's all we need, right? So obviously we had conflicts of interest. So, after a few months there, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go. And I started my own company, and I did completely the opposite. I invested in the Google Ads. I invested in the social media. I invested in the marketing. And I also I specialized, I went into the interior market. So I was doing hotels and restaurants and office buildings and things like that, while he was out there with weed eaters and lawnmowers, doing the stuff like that. And, it's sad to say you don't see him around anymore because they never survived the last 10 years, whatever. So as competition ramped up and competition became more modernized, they kind of went away. So that was kind of the story. But so I had all this experience already from doing my own social media marketing and learning Google Ads. And when the pandemic hit, obviously, because I was specialized in office buildings, hotels, and restaurants, those are the things that were hit the hardest. So I had to figure out something else to do. So I had good experience, and I really enjoyed the Google Ads aspect of it. Just it kind of hit on all my my strengths and interests. I mean, I have a science degree, so the research part of it I found was super interesting. And then just learning about big data and what that is. From before I was like, you hear about it and you're like, oh, what's that? What does that mean? But just to see how, with Google Ads, for example, you can advertise to someone through Gmail, through YouTube. I mean, you're tracking them, you're tracking their activity across all these different platforms. They're kind of in a way like profiling people to put the right ads in front of them at the right time. And I just found it fascinating. And so I really kind of dove into it, and I started, taking more classes and just specializing in it more. And now here I am today, kind of thing. And also I love the creative aspect of it, because that kind of hits that side of my personality with the ad copies and getting the right message in front of the people and things like that. Depending on the company, sometimes you add a little humor into it. Sometimes it's more technical. It's just so diverse and so interesting. That's really why I like it.
Awesome. Well, you covered a lot there about your background, and that's fantastic.
Sorry, you know me. I like to go off script, so get ready for an adventure here. I'll probably be going off on all kinds of tangents here. So
I'm buckled in for a wild ride. Don't you worry, Sam. Yeah. So to summarize, so you grew up in BC. You're Canadian.
yes,
You were
yes,
exposed to landscaping at an early age. You then
yep.
end up in Panama within a landscaping company, and you end up breaking out from that and doing your own thing there. What are some of the challenges and crossovers between, say, operating a landscaping company in Panama versus Canada? Can you see any big differences there or any big
Oh,
similarities?
yeah. Seasons. We don't have any here. You know, it either rains a lot or we get a couple months where it doesn't rain at all. So I mean, really, the only seasonal changeover is like to do with irrigation. But that's it. There's no snow. There's no fall. There's no spring. There's nothing like that. So, and I mean, we're in the tropics, so the same plants you're planting outdoors can really be indoors. Every indoor plant that you have in Canada grows naturally outdoors here. So here it's more the concern when it comes to design. It's more the concern is more about shade versus sun, than anything else. We're not worried about seasons. We're not worried about, there's no leaf cleanup. There's no anything like that. So
You're making us jealous. It's pretty frosty here in Vancouver, and this is the mildest of the Canadian weather. So I'm sure other people around Canada are thinking, that sounds like a unique challenge. Cool. I'm just out of interest, what brought you to Panama?
So I grew up in BC, and then I went out to University of Manitoba on an athletic scholarship, and that's where I went into environmental science. After I got out of university, um, I went to work for Boeing, and I kind of sold out. I started to go with the environmental aspect, and then I sold out and just went for the money. Had to pay out those student loans somehow. So I started working for Boeing in Winnipeg, and when the recession happened in 2007, 2008, I was in management. And I took a buyout package, and my father was living in the Caribbean islands of Bocas del Toro here. And so I signed, I thought I was probably around 34, 35. And I was like, you know what? Hey, I'll take the buyout. I had a rehire clause. So I'm like, dude, I'll be back to work in like 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And so I signed the papers on Friday, and I was here on Monday on the beach. But the surprise was on me that next 3 months go by, 6 months go by, 1 year goes by, you're gonna have 2 years go by, and you don't hear anything, and then after 2 years, then they called me and they're like, hey, we're ramping up again. You want to come back? And then it was like, well, it was 2 years. I was a diving instructor, bartender by night, diving instructor by day. I was living the dream. And then I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I could go back to Winnipeg, freeze my butt off. I basically, whether if I stay here or go back, I'm starting from zero anyway, because I sold all my possessions there, my car, and didn't have a house and that. So had a nice conversation with my father, because he retired at like 55 and just moved to Latin America and was Mexico all the way down through. And he said to me, you know what? I wish I would have done this at your age. And I was like,
Fair
okay.
enough.
Then it was like, well, now what am I going to do? Right. So then I was like, Panama City's got the most action. So I moved there, and that's when I got involved back into the landscaping because I knew it. I grew up in it. So, and I saw that there was like a big potential down here for it.
Cool. Well, I like to add color to the character, and that's definitely technicolor in terms of the vibrance of your life. We're all probably living vicariously through you, and Panama seems like a dream.
Well, everywhere's got its pros and its cons. So
cool. Let's get into Google Ads now. This is what we're here for, and so. Why do you think Google Ads is so effective for landscaping companies, and especially the new client angle? So not just nurturing old clients, but it's why do you think it's so effective to grow companies for landscaping?
So Google Ads, it's like, consider it like instant SEO, right? So if people know what SEO is, that's where you're basically building up your land. You know more about this than I do. It's about building your website out, getting the keywords, site links, blogs, all this stuff, building up your website. It's you're playing the long game, right? To get like organic traffic. Well, this is instant traffic. You pay, you get your ad up there, you get your website there, and it even, no matter how good your SEO is, you'll get your ad will always be in front of that. They have a, if you notice, whenever you search anything on Google, they'll be like, the first four kind of spots are reserved for ads, and then you get to the SEO after that. And a lot of people don't even realize that those are ads. So that's the other strength of it, is that they have a little tiny ad bar, but a lot of people don't notice that. And so people think that almost you're the best company because you're ranked number one, but little do they know that you paid to be there. So it's instant SEO, it's instant leads, it's instant awareness of your business.
Yeah. So often nowadays SEO doesn't even show up above the fold. Yeah. So when you're looking on desktop, and if you're looking on mobile, you have to scroll forever to get to the organic rankings. And let's not joke about this. I mean, it's Google's business model. So this is what they get paid for. It's for the ads. And so they're always innovating and making sure that people who are paying get the top spots. Yeah. For the most important keywords. The other thing is you can work out a very nice formula where you can calculate what you're putting in versus what you're getting out, and basically work out a system that is able to effectively grow your company in the services that you want. That's something else about Google Ads that you don't have with SEO. It's control. You can control what shows up in descriptions and titles, whereas for SEO, Google can pull whatever it wants and show whatever it wants. And also in terms of where it shows, like for SEO, it's always a game of creating great content and then also trying to get links back to it so that you go up in the rankings. But there's never a sure bet. And so that's where Google Ads works so well in order to get leads for landscaping companies. And it's very cost effective, isn't it? So if your average install project is 100,000 plus, it doesn't take much to see that you can spend a certain amount getting that lead if you can get it.
If you set it up right.
Yes.
If you set it up right, that's the key. And that alludes to something you said earlier about hiring a professional to do it. And I would really implore you to do that. Even if you're a small company and you think you don't have the budget, save a couple of months of budget that you might put to your Google Ads to hire someone to at least set up your account for you, because there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes too, like setting up your analytics, setting up things like that are going to help you so much down the road and save you so much money. Things like that.
I think that's a nice segue into what are some of the best practices for Google Ads.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, as I go off script again, what you were saying before, and we were talking about Google Ads, about it being their main kind of flagship program now. Google Ads is their main moneymaker. It's a product, right? And Google wants to put out a good product. So it's not just about how much money you spend. It's not like if I put on, I'm willing to buy a lead for like $1,000. I don't care. And yet you have like, Joe's lawn care services, I can't afford, I'm going to pay $20 lead. Well, no, doesn't mean that the person that's willing to pay more is going to show before you. It's Google wants to put out the best product. So it's going to take your ad that's been written, and this is why it's also good to have a professional, and they're going to look at your website as well. So that's another important thing, is to have someone that's going to fill out your website and have your website, right? So they're going to correlate your ad to your keywords, to your website, and they're going to say, okay, this guy is say you're advertising, I don't know, let's say landscape lighting, right? So Google's going to look at your ad. It's going to look that you go to a page. It's going to look that you're mentioning landscape lighting on your page, right? So it's going to say, okay, this ad is relevant to this page. We're going to give this guy, even though he's willing to pay less, we're going to put him above this person because they're saying, yeah, we do landscape lighting installation, but we go to their page and they don't mention that, right? So, there's a correlation between the ads, the quality score of the ad, your landing page, and that'll put you in front. So it's really important to have someone, sculpt your ads for you and do it. It'll save you so much money in the long run and get you better quality leads.
So you mentioned some important things there to just go over. One is, setting up Google Ads for success and having a measurement framework that then you can feed results back into campaigns in order to improve them. You also talk about quality score. I think that would be great to explain to our listeners and viewers. So I'll come back to that in a second, but really improving your ad performance enables you to get a less fee for your cost per click. So the better your ads perform, the more you will rise to the top in what's called ad rank. And you'll also be able to get a less amount of cost per click because your quality score is higher. So can you explain what quality score is?
So quality, it's a bit of the Google secret sauce, right? So we really don't know what it is, but we have, there's been enough testing and things out there that we have, as Google Ads experts, we have an idea of how it works, and it's a correlation between your keyword, your headline, and your website, and a few other little things sprinkled in between. But those are the main things. So for example, so I said landscape lighting, right? Now say you're looking for a uplighting, let's say uplighting, right? That's a very specialized, or let's say moonlighting, right? That's even more specialized. So on my website, I say, okay, we do landscape lighting, and we put like, okay, we do uplighting, moonlighting, low voltage, we'll do spotlighting, we'll do security lighting. If you list out all the things that you do, right? So now you write your ad and you say, okay, my keyword is moonlighting because I want to specialize this ad for people who are looking for moonlighting, right? So in my ad copy, now I put moonlighting in my ad copy. I say, okay, you're experts in illuminate your, give you that ambience, blah, 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 specialists in moonlighting, contact us today, right? That might be an ad headline, right? So Google sees, okay, so he says moonlighting in his headline. His keyword is moonlighting. And on his website, he says they specialize in moonlighting, and they're targeting North Vancouver. In the website, they say they're specialists in North Vancouver. Google will say, okay, this is an extremely relevant ad. Their quality score will be high. Therefore, they'll put your ad before someone else who's just, puts in moonlighting but doesn't list it on their website. Maybe put generalized landscape lighting and things like that. So that's kind of how quality score works.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically a score out of 10 for
yes.
a keyword's performance for a particular ad.
Exactly. Yeah. So generally, when you look in the account, 8 to 10 is great. Actually, 7 to 10 is great. It means your ad, everything is perfectly kind of lined up. 5 and above means, you can improve on that, and you probably should concentrate on improving that ad. And then, anything below that could be improved upon. And then anything maybe 2 and less, maybe you should just scrap that and concentrate on a different keyword.
Cool. Well, we've really got into the details there, but it's quite easy to go into all the different aspects. And this is why it's a very sophisticated platform now. And so to run it properly and to understand all these nuances, you really need someone like Sam to do this for you. Let's take a step back and talk about some of the different types of campaigns you can run on Google Ads. So can you give us a lowdown on the different types?
Sure, without going too crazy and in depth, because I know we have a time schedule here. So there's search, right, which is kind of the bread and butter. That's the bread and butter of landscape, and that's the bread and butter of most industries, because you're answering a question, right? Somebody's searching for a service and you're answering it. Who's the best landscaping company near me is quite a common one, right? So that's Google search, right? You have Google display, which is kind of like your maybe new age or modern like billboard. Oh, here you go. So that perfect right there. That's a Google search ad right there. You see the little ad by the headline, you see all the site link extensions, you see the ad up there by the thing in the left-hand corner. And you can hit hundreds of thousands of people, and you can target the audience of where you want that to be. So you could hit, maybe do-it-yourselfers. You can even target people who own houses. You can target certain age groups of people. You can target all these different things, from that. Then you have retargeting, which once you're gathering all this data, and that's where analytics and everything else comes in, you know, setting up the tracking and your Google tag managers. This is another important aspect of it, is why you maybe hire a professional at first just to get your account set up, you know, and running for you. So you can capture people who have been to your website. Now you can retarget them with an ad, you know, across all these aspects, like I mentioned before, like Gmail, YouTube, you know, Google, you know, all these different platforms, you know, Yahoo. You can go across everything. You can retarget them on that, and that's what a retargeting ad. You can even use that one step further, and you can say, okay, I want to. So these people have gone to my web page, right, through an ad, and they've stayed there for about 40 seconds looking around. So I know that there was some sort of interest, right? You can get at this through analytics. And I want to now retarget those people with an ad, display ad, where I'm offering 15% off, you know, our yearly maybe landscaping plan, you know. And so you can actually set that up to send them to a landing page where they get, so that's like an enticing them back to your page because they're kind of familiar with your brand, and this is kind of that extra push to get them to commit to you. So that's the retargeting. And then of course you have YouTube, which now you can do YouTube ads. And that's another whole separate rabbit hole I could go down. But you can basically, I mean, if there's say you have a you really want to focus on organic landscaping principles, you know, we don't use pesticides, we don't use any of that. You can actually target like YouTube channels, like, you know, maybe there's a popular, maybe like permaculture or aquaponics or something like that. You can target those audiences. You can even, if there's a popular influencer or webcaster, you can actually have your ad showing up on his or hers podcast. So it's really quite interesting what you can do, and quite fascinating. And that was one of the things that really caught my attention when I started into this.
Yeah, it's super powerful. Yeah, and it's quite flexible, and the different types of campaigns can be used in different ways. You know, search and text is really your bread and butter for driving new leads to your services.
Phone call only ads. You could do call only ads. You can target mobile devices. You could
page, because it is a very different service, and then you can show up as people are in the deliberation phase on websites that they're visiting. You know, Google Ads puts a cookie in their browser so they can keep showing. You can even choose the frequency those ads show up, so you're not bugging them too much. You can choose how long it goes on for, so it matches your sales cycle. It's super powerful, and that's really important to do to improve conversion rates. Yeah.
You can even upload your customer list. They call it customer match. And depending on your ad spend and how much data you have, you can target the people in your list, you know, that you've captured from before your emails, or you can even target people like that who are in your customer. You know, they'll go by postal code, and like maybe if they work at the same place. And it's just amazing what they can do.
Cool. All right. Looking at the time, we still have a couple of things to cover. One is that old chestnut, how much should you spend or budget for Google Ads? And then we have the trend segment, which I don't want to leave too little time for because it's really important. It's about local service ads. But yeah, just to get your thoughts here on what would you recommend? Someone comes to you, a landscaping company owner, and says, all right, how much should I spend on Google Ads a month?
That's such a broad question, because it could be anything. I mean, myself, I usually suggest about 1,500 a month, just on average, because with that you can usually get, you know, 2 quality campaigns out of that, and then when you start to sculpt those campaigns and get them really dialed in, then you can take some of that budget and start like a third, maybe niche campaign, something like that. There's all kinds of metrics. There's all kinds of like formulas that you use. I know one is like you look at the keyword you want to target, you know, and then you times that by, you know, the searches by 100, and then that gets you, you know, kind of in the ballpark figure of what you want to spend. But realistically, and I think you've shown in some of your other presentations that, as you start to sculpt the campaigns, your cost per click will go down. Therefore, you'll be getting more bang for your buck, and then you can maybe start moving some of that, that ad spend to different areas and start, putting different campaigns. But if it's going to be a lower ad spend, I don't discourage people from doing that. I just say, if you're going to do a lower, because it's not possible sometimes for some, especially some small lawn care business, maybe they only got $500 that they can put on a month, something like that. Don't diversify. Focus on one key element of your business, whether it's lawn care or maybe it's sodding or something like that. Don't spread it thin. Concentrate your budget on one thing and go from there, and just try to get that really dialed in.
Sounds like good advice. And I guess we have to throw out the caveat that it just also depends what growth phase you're in as a company. So
absolutely,
we've been lucky enough to work with bigger companies that are 8 figures plus, but then also smaller companies that are just getting going and are in a different growth phase. And so you have to budget for that. And really an important point is to budget for what your growth, what you want that to be, not for what you're currently at. And there's all sorts of magical formulas for what you should spend on marketing versus what you should spend on digital marketing versus what you should spend on Google Ads. For example, something like 10% of your revenues should be spent on marketing. But what do you include in that budget? Do you include personnel? Do you include digital marketing campaigns, your Google Ads spend? So we have various suggestions and formulas that we utilize, and really, you have to take into account especially what your goals are, what your resources are, and then what you alluded to there, Sam, which is sometimes referred to as the golden ratio of Google Ads, which is your average CPC times 100 clicks, because you need enough data for Google's algorithm to be able to learn properly. And so you just got to take all these things into consideration and then come up with what fits for your company. Yep. Awesome. I think we've covered Google Ads pretty well there.